advertised work meeting of the Board of Health. We really have, the one reason that we called the meeting was to discuss again the spin-off of the regulations for nutrient-sensitive areas. And I'll get back to that issue in a moment. But there's one other matter of old business which we left off last time, and I thought that today may be as good a day as any to polish that off, just to keep things moving before the Yuletide season is upon us. But I think we should begin really with the regulations for nutrient-sensitive areas. What happened since the last meeting was that Gussie, Ms. McCusick, suggested that we should have a handout of sorts that might be an introduction to what the regulations are about, that might be particularly useful at the time of the public hearings, which we should also, by the way, consider scheduling or looking at the time of them today. And we worked on that. Once again, I'd like to point out that although we have been, I think, very conscientious of not doing business by email, since we're not allowed to, I still think that email is a magnificent way of refining a document, which is what we did. Anyway, we refined the document to a point where...
Chairman, also point out that all email communications have been sent to the town clerk and are in file there.
Correct. They're all available.
It's not little private, circuitous.
No, we've done it right, and I make no apology, whatever. However, I was doing, went along nicely, and Susan sent me 7 commas in an envelope, and we worked in 6 of them. Now she told me that the 7th should be in 2, and it will be in. But then, out of the blue came a large monkey wrench with Sims loosely attached. And Sims, I will confess once again, as I did in my answer, I don't understand what you're saying. You've got to lead me gently through it, because maybe I'm alone, but maybe others are a little puzzled too.
Well, you have a copy of what I was trying to print off from my computer when it hemorrhaged immediately before this meeting. My purpose, the discussion I wanted to raise is under the heading, therefore the regulations, : and I call special attention to the second bullet, which reads in this draft, apply only to new construction and will almost exclusively affect the approximately 400 undeveloped lots that represent about 8% of all the lots in Orleans.
We have that information now?
If that were the intent of the regulation, then any house, a 3-bedroom house presently on a half-acre lot, hypothetically, would be able to add however many more bedrooms they can fit on their lot in terms of building coverage and how big a septic system they can fit onto that undersized parcel. And it does not coincide with my interpretation of the regulation, which would, in fact, limit the expansion of existing structures, and it would not require the removal of a bedroom, hypothetically a 3-bedroom house on a 20,000 square foot lot, which is, by the arithmetic in these regulations, too many bedrooms for the parcel. However, it would limit the ability of a 2-bedroom house on a 20,000 square foot lot. It would limit that house's ability to add bedrooms. Not necessarily limit its ability to expand, but it would limit its ability to add bedrooms. Now, that being my interpretation of the regulation, the second bullet here seems to disagree. And so I think it's up to us to come to an agreement on what is the intent of the regulation. Is it only new houses on thoroughly untouched parcels, or is it any place a new bedroom is going to be added? The arithmetic needs to be done, and you need to make sure that you have 10,000 square feet for each bedroom that either exists or is proposed for a parcel.
See, there's the other thought I had too, Sims, when puzzling about how to interpret all this. Because there's renovation, but there's also tearing down a house and rebuilding the house from scratch.
Understood.
And, you know, is that, my interpretation is that is new construction.
And I think Bob read us verbiage from Title V that suggests if there was an existing structure on a parcel, it is removed in its entirety and replaced by a different structure, that is still considered a renovation.
That's right.
That's great. It is, Title V excludes from new construction, excludes from the definition of new construction, the reconstruction of any unit totally or partially. So you could totally reconstruct a unit. It would not be considered new construction per Title V.
So you could take an entire house, put it in the dumpster, get an excavator, take the foundation out of the ground, put it in a dumpster, take it all away, and start with a new hole in the ground, new foundation, new house, and it still is not new construction.
That's right. Then that is Board of Health, not building and not, yeah.
And so if we are to strictly apply the second bullet under therefore the regulations,
Right.
we would not capture such projects. Nor would we capture the project where someone puts a substantial addition onto an existing structure that may add any number of bedrooms. And my feeling is that the regulation should capture both of those projects.
So it looks to me that under the word purpose, in the second paragraph of this whole thing, again, it says the same issue of new construction. Gussie, you want to make a point, I'm sorry.
The purpose of these regulations is not a zoning tool. By round Robin Hood's barn, it sort of becomes a growth zoning tool, if you will. The purpose of these regulations are to deal with nutrient-sensitive areas. If a property, whether it's a quarter acre or half an acre, you know, an acre, has a home on it with an approvable septic system that is serving, let's say a half acre parcel that has 3 bedrooms, has 3 bedrooms there, or quarter acre with 3 bedrooms, let's do that, quarter acre with 3 bedrooms, and they choose to tear that down and rebuild a home that meets the height, the footprint, everything else, and still has 3 bedrooms, but happens to be bigger, you are not changing the nutrient impact to the land. And I do think it's within our purview to do that, because the purpose of this is to deal with the nutrients. And it is consistent with the current definition of construction and new construction and reconstruction. I realize it will only serve a small portion of the properties, but I think it is consistent with our intent. We are not a zoning body, we're not a planning board, we're coming at it from the nutrient part. So, to sum it up, if you've got a parcel of land that already has X bedrooms, whatever size that parcel is, and they want to rebuild it, and it's within the scope, it's without the scope, they should be able to do it.
But that is not new construction by the definition you've just again
That's right.
emphasized.
That's right.
And this says, in actually both your and my wording in different paragraphs, Gussie, that this deals with new construction. And
Therefore, you're talking about the therefore bullet now, aren't you?
both of the top, under purpose, the draft regulations affect only new construction.
That's right. And those would not be new construction.
Correct, but Sims feels that it gives, it's not the regulation itself, it's this kind of cover thing that you're disputing, I think.
Well, and my concern here is that, and I guess maybe we are, this comes down to the semantics of new construction. If there is an existing 2-bedroom house on an undersized parcel, and there is a proposal in front of the, presently, if there's a proposal in front of the building department and the health department for an additional 2 bedrooms attached to the existing 2-bedroom house. Right now, the considerations are, can you meet the Title V requirements? Can you put in a septic system appropriate for the 4 bedrooms on the parcel? And the building department is going to consider whether it meets the lot coverage standards. The way this is phrased, that would be allowable if it were on a 20,000 square foot parcel. You could have your two-bedroom house and you could put a two-bedroom addition on it.
That's
Because
change of
but we're handing out an informational piece that says it's only new construction on vacant lots that have always been vacant.
I don't see-
Yet,
I don't
yet
see the word vacant lot here.
new construction that will almost
It does.
exclusively affect the more or less 400 undeveloped lots that represent about 8% of all lots in Orleans. We have specifically identified the parcels that will be affected. And I do not believe that that specific identification is commensurate with the spirit and the intent of the regulation.
So really.
Bob's got his hand up. I think he's gonna.
And then Sue, I'm sorry, Bob and Sue.
I-
Sue and then Bob.
Well, no, I agree with Sims in the fact that, there is, even within the building code, you cross a certain threshold. I know certainly within the Board of Health, there is a threshold. 25% of a renovation of a house, all of a sudden is deemed, under their regulations, as new construction. I've been trying to find out at the building department, that they were all out for lunch, if there is a threshold there as well, that once you start adding to a house, then it becomes technically new construction. Certainly, I don't think that we should be, I don't think what we're trying to achieve should allow somebody to add additional bedrooms to an existing structure. And I
Even if they
feel
have an acre and a half of land and they have 3 bedrooms? We've already said if they got an acre and a half of land and have 3 bedrooms, they are entitled to have 6 bedrooms.
And I'm not disputing that. What I really have a concern about is defining new construction as construction only on those
Okay,
approximate 400 sites in town.
you've
Yeah.
convinced me.
And so that specificity, whether it follows the intent of the regulation or not, would lead the public to believe that it will not capture additions to a house involving bedrooms, regardless of the size of the parcel. And I think
Misleading.
it's
Yeah.
misleading.
But do you want to comment?
I
Then
agree
then I'll say.
Sure, on page 5 of the draft regulations,
Oh,
under section 5.1.2 and 5.1.6, it does say that the regulation is applicable to commercial developments with the total sewage design flow of under 10,000 gallons per day, where an addition or change of use is proposed that would increase the sewage flow over the existing flow, but less than 10,000. And then 5.1.6 says alterations, additions, or changes in use to existing dwellings that would increase the calculated design flow. 5.1.5 is construction of single-family dwellings. So it applies to all those purposes. And then we have on page 6, section 6.2, we're saying that no facility described in section 1 shall be, section 5 shall be expanded or of a change of use that increases the design flow until a system has been obtained, down to the end, including documentation that the facility's design flow is less than or equal to 440 gallons per 40,000 square feet of lot area or the ratio thereof. So I think in the applicability aspect and the general provisions of the regulation, we're saying you can't construct a new house, alteration of an existing house, change of use of a house, or anything else without falling under these regulations, and the criteria you have to meet is a ratio of a flow of 440 gallons per day per 10,000 square feet.
Would it simply solve those concerns, and they're real because it's the perception, by inserting the words after new construction under purpose and after new construction on your second bullet? That does not increase the flow, the Title V flow.
If we say for that second bullet, that applies to new construction, alteration, additions, or changes of use to properties that would increase the calculated sewage design flow.
instead of talking about the undeveloped lots
Yes.
and
Yeah,
so on.
take that out.
It's the
So,
reference to the undeveloped lots that I feel is incorrect.
Isn't it?
anyway, there's
Okay.
nothing wrong with the regulations, the draft regulations,
I am not raising an issue with the regulations.
which is important. Okay.
I'm raising an issue about how the regulations are represented in this draft document that is supposed to be an informational handout at public hearings.
Okay, well then let's work on that wording. What is your wording again, Bob?
I had,
Give it slowly, I'll write this down.
therefore, the regulations, bullet, apply to new construction, alteration, additions or changes in use at properties that would increase the calculated sewage design flow.
New construction, alterations, additions, or changes in use
That would.
At properties,
on properties.
on properties.
Yep.
Or to properties, I
Really?
guess,
Linda's getting it.
that would increase the calculated sewage design flow.
Instead of anything about calculated,
Undeveloped
Uh,
lots.
Yeah, and I really, the essence of my issue here is the removal of the reference to exclusively affect
Yep.
400 or so
Okay.
undeveloped
All
lots.
right, we'll take that out then.
And what percentage they are of Orleans
Okay.
parcels.
again, that up above, we should have to say something too. The draft regulations affect only, can't say that. Should we say primarily new construction?
I say new construction,
Take the only
It does
out
not.
and cross out the only. Apply
Well,
to new
just say-
construction, alterations, additions, or
no, we're
change.
talking about
No,
up
no,
here.
up
Oh, I'm
above.
sorry.
How about if we just said the draft regulations are designed,
Yeah,
and then
Yeah,
go
leave
into the
out the-
bullets?
okay. Because I made a great point of this, because when we met with the selectmen, remember the question that Mark Karen asked? Are you gonna come around and tell me?
Take my bedroom out, yeah.
Yeah, take out a bedroom or take out my sewage system or something. And that's why I made this big point. I mean, if Mark didn't understand it, I felt a lot of people wouldn't understand it. And that's why I wanted to say that it's really new construction.
No, but that's a pre-existing situation, yeah.
I know,
You
but then-
can't take away something that is already there.
I know, that's why I said new construction. And that's what I was trying to emphasize, that as Sims has educated me just now, that's not enough. It's gotta say more than that. It's new constructions, or there's gonna be one word rather than the whole sentence we've already had.
It essentially, any project that would trigger some sort of review of the wastewater disposal system presently is going to fall under this regulation. And this regulation is going to apply the 440 gallons per day per 40,000 square feet or any ratio thereof. That's going to be applied to any project that would trigger review today.
Can you think, I mean, this is just a heading, and in that second paragraph, where we've got that sentence that Bob just told us, which I think.
That straightens it out.
But up above, as a heading, I wondered if there's one word that can somehow summarize this. Or do we just put in a qualifier, like, the draft regulations,
Well,
Primarily.
No, Bob just offered the words. The draft regulations are designed to, slow the rate of nitrogenous weight increase in the water, support, and then you go to the bullets, period.
without saying anything about new
Right.
construction up there.
Are designed to.
But nonetheless, I still think that in terms of, again, we're at a public hearing now, and there's a lot of people who come in and they're upset and they don't understand, that sentence now, applied to new construction or,
We've taken it out.
no, down below. We've changed it. We haven't taken it out. New construction, or alterations, additions, changes in use, properties that would increase the calculated sewage flow, words to that effect. That needs to be emphasized, because that's gonna be reassuring to people. Like now,
Well,
Karen, you thought we were gonna come to his
No,
house
it won't be
today.
reassuring until they apply to theirs and they sit in the audience and they ask the question. You can write words on a piece of paper till the cows come home, but until somebody asks the question relative to their own property specifically, you don't get it.
But I think the first bullet.
Right.
In fact, addresses Jan's concerns.
Yeah.
The first bullet says, therefore, the regulations do not demand any change in the number of bedrooms
In
in
existing.
existing residences.
Right.
And I think that could even be expanded to say, this regulation does not demand any change in the number of bedrooms in existing residences or their present sewage disposal system. This regulation does not trigger a review of existing subsurface disposal systems.
That getting a little too
If,
technical.
if you make an application for a change on your parcel that would trigger one anyway, then the criteria defined in this regulation will then be applied. But it's not creating a new trigger point.
Then do we put in another bullet or add to that first bullet to emphasize to them, not only that we're not going to.
Put in a second, an additional
Maybe it's the
bullet.
fourth bullet really, but it become number 2.
But no, yeah, it becomes
Become
number
number 2.
2, yes.
That says, what Sim just said about the fact that we're not going to demand a change in the subsurface sewage disposal systems, the existing subsurface sewage disposal systems.
Say septic system, we don't have to get, I
Hmm.
mean, people,
Okay. With that change, then, we've cut out affect only new construction in the first line under purpose. And then we've added to the second bullet under therefore the new regulations, and we've now added a new bullet, which, Bob, have you caught the wording of that? Linda has.
Would you read it back? Please.
Excuse me, apply only to new construction, alteration, additions, or changes in use to properties that would increase the calculated design flow.
But it's number 3 now. Do you have number 3? What Simmons just said about the.
Two.
That's
No,
number
no.
2.
It's going to become number 3 when we
Inserting.
insert a new number 2.
There's a new number 2.
Yeah.
No, number
it's,
3.
it's,
New number
it's
3.
1.5.
No,
I think it's appropriate that it go in here, because these regulations do not demand any change in the number of bedrooms in
Right.
existing residences. Therefore, the regulations do not trigger
These
That's the
a
wording.
new septic inspection. I mean, Bob can help
Change or
here.
alteration to existing septic
Yeah.
system.
But that's the third bullet.
Therefore, the
No, that's the second one.
regulations, the third bullet would be, therefore, the
That's now.
regulations apply to new construction, additions, alterations, or changes in use on properties that would increase
Yeah, she just read it.
septic
So
design.
the new
flow.
bullet is number 2, not number
Yes.
3.
I would, I
Oh,
would,
yes, I agree.
Would
because
you read what the wording is on
the
bullet?
first two are going to be what is not affected. The
Okay.
third one will be what
Okay.
is affected.
I'm with
Would
you.
you give us the words again for the new number 2? Do not.
These, the do nots. And second, there's 2 do nots, 2 dots in a row. The second do not.
Can we simply say on that these regulations do not affect any legally approved sewage design flow? I'm just thinking, saying that they're not going to affect anything. We ran into something on 33, well, South Orleans Road, down in South Orleans, where illegal bedrooms were added.
Yep.
That came up under a review, would not fall under the review of these regulations, but these regulations would apply if we review illegal bedrooms and say you're not in compliance.
So how to say this?
So these regulations do not apply to any septic
These
system
regulations would not,
currently
would not
operating
impact
legally,
any
legally operating septic
Legally-
system.
operating septic systems.
Do not impact?
Well, the flow, I think, is what we're getting at, though.
If you have a
I don't wanna-
legally operating septic system today, this regulation doesn't do anything to you until you apply for a building permit that involves an increase in flow.
Which really the next bullet deals with.
Yeah.
So already, okay.
So it does not affect you if you don't do anything. And we need to codify that. The second does not.
So we have 2 do nots. Number 1 do not is exactly as is listed, the first bullet. The second do not says something like, do not affect any legally operating septic system. And bullet number 3 is now modified to read something like, and Linda had it, applied not
She
only,
got it, she had it.
applied to, the word only is going to go out. Applied
Correct.
to new construction, and then the other stuff.
In this context, should new no longer be capitalized?
It was
Probably.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good, good point.
Good point, Sue. All right, I think we've got it.
Is this one regulation?
This is very useful, actually. Very useful discussion, though,
Always a
because,
debate.
you know, for a public hearing, it could have been pinned to the wall with confusion between
Well,
us.
the language that was in this informational handout frightened me in that regard.
No, I'm
Because,
glad you did.
because I can imagine that if after the process, the regulations were implemented, and this document's still out there, this would seem to be an actionable misrepresentation,
Yeah.
especially since the document originated from the board promulgating the regulations.
Just shows that the end product is better than the sum of the parts.
Will we have the,
Someone gave me a
the
book on that once.
draft number 5
Yes,
at
next packet.
Thursday's meeting?
Yep.
Okay.
Now, Bob, you had something that you were chatting with me about in the regulation itself.
Can I just talk
Yes.
about this one more second? I
Sure,
wanna get-
absolutely.
If you don't mind, or you had something else to say about this?
It was regarding this as well. I'll go first. Do you want to add under the first page, we know that, and put something in there, nitrogen which is produced by humans is discharged to the environment through septic systems?
Yep,
Start again.
that's the first bullet.
Very first line,
bullet.
the first line?
Right, and put in nitrogen which is produced by humans is discharged to the environment through septic systems?
Yep, I
That-
think
that-
that
that-
sets the context.
That is the first of those
So actually, that's,
5 steps.
it is not,
Is this background?
that's actually
Or the greatest source of controllable nitrogen.
Yes,
Mhm.
that is not bullet number 1, and it's a separate bullet.
Yeah,
yeah.
It should be the first bullet.
Yes, okay. Say it again, Bob, I liked it.
the greatest source of controllable nitrogen.
Greatest source of controllable nitrogen that is produced by humans is discharged into the environment through septic systems.
No,
Or
you
discharged to the
amended
environment?
The greatest source of controllable nitrogen.
Controllable is the word.
Produced, I guess we don't even
It-
need that.
Is
it-
produced
it-
by humans.
It is produced by humans and released into the environment through septic
Septic
systems.
system.
Do we want the environment, or do we want to say?
Groundwater.
The groundwater.
Groundwater.
The groundwater through septic systems?
Yeah, we can be that specific,
Yeah, right.
even if there is an eventual breakout. But I mean, the end issue is the fact that it's released into our
Yeah,
marine estuaries.
And
Which
that
we say
becomes
down
number
later.
2, bullet
Which
number
is number
2.
2, as written.
As written.
That's a very useful first bullet, Bob, thank you for that.
well then, if we're writing new bullets and getting things organized, I would create a new first bullet. I would take the third bullet and make that the second bullet. I mean, that's the clearer flow.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
Yes.
So then the third bullet becomes number 2. The first bullet becomes number 3. The fourth, the second bullet becomes number 4, and the last bullet is number 5.
Wait a minute, do that again, please.
Actually, go down, the number
It's a
1 is.
brand new number 1.
Number 1 is brand new, okay, what's number 2? What's the top bullet becomes number 1?
There's a brand, yeah.
What's
Then-
this?
Then the next one is most subsurface sewage systems do not remove
Number 2,
nitrogen.
okay.
So that's the old 3 becomes number 2.
Okay, then what become,
The old number 1 becomes number 3.
okay,
The old number 2 becomes number 4.
Okay, right.
And the old number 4 becomes number 5.
okay, so we've changed the sequence of those.
I
You have
agree.
that? I like that too, that's very, very nice.
Did you get your say, Bob?
Yes,
Okay, I would suggest that once we sign off on this on the 6th, that we print off a bunch, we have them on the counter. If anybody comes in, hand it to them, and then when we have public hearings, we just carefully lay one on every chair.
Mhm.
Which is really the purpose of this, as an introduction.
But we're also going to send a nice letter to the selectmen.
Oh, yes.
And with this,
Thanking them for their input
And I think they did trigger some of this,
Absolutely.
there's no question about that,
and telling them when our public hearings are scheduled.
which we should work on before this day is out. Okay, Bob, you had yet another issue that you want to bring to our attention.
yes, but yet another one on this.
Me
I
too.
just
Oh, you
saw.
do?
So I haven't even gotten to the other yet.
The hot stuff is coming yet, okay.
On the second page, bullet 4,
Here's the
What?
second page.
You mean
Number
number
four?
or number 4, I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Number 4, can a 1 acre lot build a house with 4 bedrooms and a home office? I'm just not sure a home office versus a professional office in a home.
I'll say study, change the word.
Study be good.
A den, a media room.
I mean, I put it in, I put study,
Well,
music
just
room.
Put all the different monikers it carries. Can you put a 4-bedroom home and a home office / den / medium room
/ music room.
/ music room,
I mean, I have it down there, but you want it up above, and is what you're saying.
etc.
How about, can the owner of a 1 acre lot build a house with 4 bedrooms? Oh, no, never mind. I was gonna say, and
I mean, we're trying to put this in layman's terms.
Yep.
That's the point of this FAQ section. And I know that you'll sort out the frequently asked questions. And I know you'll sort out the margin issue in number 3. But the, I mean, just think up all the monikers that are attached to those bonus rooms that
Yep.
are sort of the extra room designed in that aren't necessarily called a bedroom, which may eventually turn into one, whether it's intended or not by the applicant. Subsequent owners may say, oh, nice office, that's a 5th bedroom. But it's, so I would recommend having in the text all the various nouns or adjectives that can be applied to those bonus rooms.
Well, we've got study and music room down below, but you want it up in the main stem up.
What was your problem, Bob? The word office, it
I
implies that you're.
just don't know if
Business.
I'm not sure of the zoning or other regulations
Say
definition
study.
of a home office.
Say study.
Well, home office is a generic term, and it is for people who do work at home, not necessarily people who work from home.
Mhm.
I
You
call
know,
mine
it's
a
just,
study.
I've discovered recently that the fact that I sit at my desk at night and bill clients, I'm actually in violation of zoning bylaws because
Working.
because I am running my business from my house. Now, I don't have clients come to my house, I have no deliveries to my house, but by virtue of sitting at the computer and running up invoices in my house, I'm
But
actually
that's
in
not
vi-
really running your business from your house, that's just doing some
Oh,
work
hey,
at home.
my-
But I have an area of my home that I use for office-like purposes. Home office furniture is a standard term. It doesn't necessarily indicate that it is a business being run from the house. So I wouldn't worry about it too much, and I especially would not worry about it if you lump it in with the other
Okay.
residential type uses.
So you're saying that up where the word home office, comma, study, comma, music room, comma,
or
whatever.
Slash is
just
better.
all the
Okay.
variables.
Put them all up there.
Oh,
Yeah.
so, but still keep home office in there?
Correct.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
just
okay.
one option. Now it's
It's
study and
it's
music
just
room.
part of the nomenclature.
We've had a yoga room, remember? We had a yoga room at one time.
Do you want to put them in both places, up in the bolded question and also in the answer?
No, once is
I
enough.
think put them in one place.
Once is enough.
One, but the home office quote, comma, I'm the comma
Well,
queen.
slashes and steroids.
Okay, et cetera.
Exactly. Slash, et cetera.
Yeah, right.
You know.
And then down below, just home
I
office.
think the one that
et cetera.
bothers me is the sunroom, the sun porch, the,
Oh, well, yeah, right.
Well, that's an even looser determination.
Well,
because
that's
is it
why the
insulated?
answer starts with perhaps.
yeah. That was mine. I don't know if you disagree with that. I just threw that in. Because you said yes, 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 and I threw in a perhaps. Okay. Bob, any other wrenches, monkey wrenches?
No, I'm
I have a couple of minor points if they haven't been fixed yet. The, under number 3, the period should be inside the parentheses on those sentences, as my understanding of
Yes.
the way you do periods and commas, depends on how long, since the whole sentence is within the
Yeah.
parentheses, and the periods do go there too. And I think even down at Sleep Sofa Police, that the period might be supposed to, I'm not as sure of that. First, the second one, number 5, is the period supposed to be within the quote there?
No,
It
it's meant to
isn't?
be
You sure about
outside of
that?
the quote. Yep.
Okay,
If
That
the
was all.
period were part of the quotation being made,
then it's in.
if someone were quoting me as saying, "I slept well last night," the period would be inside the quotation.
Would there be another period after that?
No.
No,
Would it end with,
Because the quotation is the sentence.
copies of the whole sentence.
But that's not the case.
The quotation here is only
No.
the term,
Is the
not the
term, so
sentence.
that's, it's why it's outside.
Correct.
the one area.
Robert Police.
I wasn't sure about that one, but I was about the other. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, but
No, that's it.
The one question I have, really of you, Gussie.
Get your comment in.
Yes, I get my
We
comment.
got, I gave her coming back. I hope to- I can't get through to Gussie.
Well, nothing.
Mrs. Gussie, are you home? I have a question of you,
Perhaps.
perhaps. The last two sentences, I missed about with what you wrote, and I just wondered if I had captured your intent well enough.
In number what?
The very last
Five.
two sentences, it's
About
not
the number of
five.
bedrooms and water use?
Yeah, all that stuff. I mean, you know, you had the number of persons per bedroom into 2 decimal points. You'll have to forgive me if I
That's all right.
pulled it down to 1, and even that I think is pretty sloppy.
I think it's a little awkward, actually.
It's probably more than needs to be. I was doing, as Sims calls it, my brain dump when I wrote the original thing. So I think we can take that portion of my brain dump out. I mean, you know,
I mean, that whole last paragraph, is it necessary, is my question. I think it
I-
carries a message, and maybe it is.
is this a explaining document or a teaching document?
Both.
That question has been raised.
Hmm.
And it's, we know how many people live in Orleans. Why are we fiddling with the number of bedrooms? And the answer is that bedrooms and water use are the data points we can verify. We can't verify how many people are here. Do we count cars and how many people are in them when they get off exit 12? And what about the side roads? And-
Only if you're a neighbor and
and-
you have
and-
rental next door.
And how do you count the people who get here by boat? So obviously, you can't count the people.
Sure.
You have to find another way, you have to find verifiable data. And I think it's,
I
I
agree.
think that sentence is fine. I
Yeah.
would replace the word "but" with "however."
Yeah.
And the water use, I think, should be expressed somehow so that it's similar to number of bedrooms. You go from number of bedrooms to water use, gallons of water, but I don't know if that works, but got number of bedrooms and how would you say water use? Is there another way to say that to make it
Water
less?
records.
They are the verifiable data. I don't think we need to get into how the data is.
I'm talking about the sentence
It
structure.
it
I find it a
says
little
number of
awkward.
bedrooms and water use. You don't like the word use.
I don't like, when I first read it, it was a little awkward because of,
Water consumption?
Water
Yeah,
consumption,
there we
yeah.
go.
But it's not consumption. If I sprinkle my lawn, am I consuming
No,
water?
no, it is the water consumption,
Mhm.
because there is a consumptive measure in that.
There's a meter
It
that they-
really is.
there's a water meter and they
The
can,
the meter only tells you what's going in. You know, can't tell the difference between a broken sprinkler
No,
and your,
water
you know,
use,
dipsomanic uncle.
Yeah,
you know.
Jan, there are also verifiable consumptive measures, and these are used in all the data, so I don't care what we say there. I mean, you've got to say the water sump, your water bills, your water usage, your water,
Well, it says water use right now. Robin
even
doesn't like use.
usage would be somehow less
You want
awkward.
an edge, you want an
But
AG?
I like
answer?
consumption, but you can do what you like.
I propose these three small changes.
However, I'll put in there, right?
Yes. Cross out
Do.
Where are
and
you?
cross out presently.
Okay.
Now read the sentence.
I will read that last sentence, which is now slightly different. It now reads, however, the number of bedrooms and water use provide verifiable and consistent data from which the requirements of our town-wide wastewater management plans can be calculated and upon which a regulation may be based. Now, the only word that still challenges use, and we can change, we can put anything you want in there. Now's your opportunity, Robin. Wax eloquent, lass.
I liked Bob's suggestion, but I.
What's that? Usage?
Consumption, usage is fine too.
consumption.
Upon which, wait a minute,
Use is what goes through the meter. From a scientific standpoint, consumption is that
I understand that.
component which
Saying
goes
this-
through the meter, but which is not altered it goes into the lawn, it doesn't go into the wastewater stream.
Then usage sounds more like a noun than use. to me. I know,
Usage is not a noun. Oh, it is a noun. Yes, it is.
Water use.
Water use.
Well, I think it's.
use is
later
a
on.
noun also, but it just was a little awkward when I first read it, but you guys do whatever you like.
Okay,
Not
now,
a
but
big deal.
But
let's,
water use is an activity.
Can I say water meter data?
Right.
let's not beat this thing to death.
I mean, we've got a noun and
No,
then
no,
more of a.
no, come on. I need to know, plans can be calculated and upon which, and what is after upon which?
Where are we? Where
A regulation may be based.
Just take
A-
out
a-
presently.
A reg,
I removed
Be-
presently from the,
be
Based.
based.
We've got the presently out.
I removed the presently from the printing
Yes, okay.
version.
And the
Is-
do.
Let's see, it's already,
Okay.
oh, wait. This is-
We'll
Of
leave
the
it.
number of bedrooms and water use, provide verifiable and consistent data from which the regulation, the requirements of our town-wide wastewater management plan can be calculated and upon which a reg can be based.
You had been missing that.
You know, it should be a regulation or regulations.
Here we go.
It's a generic reference to data
this.
upon which a regulation may be based.
I think
Mine
we've
had-
done it. I'm tired of this one. Bob, you still want to
You
talk
are.
about something else? I've been staring at this thing. You should see how often this.
Well, I must congratulate you, because I think that really a lot of this stems from your initial revision, which I thought was very good. It
Well-
became much more clear.
But the idea is Gussie's, the
Yes,
original
right.
wording is Gussie's. She
It was a
is-
brain dump.
You know, I may be in the midwife, but Gussie delivered this thing. Bob, you have another
It took
issue.
a team, it took a team.
Took a team. It
Okay.
takes a village.
Took a
Have you
team.
got it, Linda?
No,
You don't? You have a question?
Bob's got it.
I have it too.
You, or,
And if you want it, I can spend time with you.
no, it's just, I couldn't even find the place that you were referring to.
The last.
The very,
paragraph.
very, very last.
Bob, you had another thing you wanted to cheer us up with.
Yes, on
Pass
page,
that, Bob.
on page 7 of the regulations,
What's the date?
That has the
29th?
modification of number 5 on it.
Well,
Of the
mine's got
draft?
all of them, though. Okay,
Page 7?
page 7 of the big thing, of the document, right? The draft
of the
document.
big document.
Draft document.
I've seen
We
this
still
map.
have red, huh?
I just had a couple of comments. The first one, why it occurred to me now and not before, do we want 7.2 in the regulation? Properties already connected to a town sewer or already use enhanced treatment that removes nitrogen or phosphorus may apply for a variance and/or a waiver of this portion of the regulation.
Or we don't have anybody on the sewer yet.
But we
The
have.
portion of the
people-
regulation is variances.
And Bob, I came in late. I'm sorry, I was looking for the place. Say it again. Where are you?
7.2.
Okay,
That's a good point.
properties.
We are in the variances section.
Mhm.
I think that's thoroughly appropriate. One of the conditions of, one of the variances is to demonstrate to the satisfaction of the board that, let me get, demonstrates to the board that the discharge of effluent from the proposed septic system will offer the same level of protection to the ground or surface water. All they're doing is coming in and demonstrating that they have already put in a measure that protects the ground or surface water from
Okay.
nutrient overload. All they're doing is they're codifying an existing system that would otherwise be granted by a variance.
This,
But if you see a downside to codifying existing systems,
I don't
let
see
me
it.
know, because from a professional standpoint, I recognize from your professional standpoint, there may be a downside. Are they properly operated? Are they properly sized?
What I see is that they can apply for a variance from the variance portion of the regulation. They'd be asking for a variance not to receive a variance,
Mm.
Maybe just
Is,
take out that
uh,
bottom
uh,
line.
how I'm reading that. And the other question
Well,
is, on properties already connected to a town sewer,
or
I don't
those
think
that-
this regulation would even apply to those, because there's no longer subsurface sewage disposal.
So we could eliminate the
So
whole
for
thing.
properties already connected to a town sewer would be exempt from this regulation. That should appear under applicability.
Okay.
And then properties may apply for a variance. I'd take out the "of this portion,"
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I was saying.
because as, using that definition, then you are encapsulating it in the variances. I would replace that with, properties, already using enhanced treatment may apply for a, variance or waiver of the limitations of this regulation.
Okay, let me run this by you.
But they would still be subject to demonstrating that they are,
Things working.
that their system is protecting the environment to the same degree that, I mean, if they have an expanded use or are expanding a use, I mean, if they've already written the check and they have a system in the ground that would support a 4-bedroom house on 30,000 square feet. It's a nitrogen removing system, it's there. They can establish that it has the capacity for the 4th bedroom and that there would be less nitrogen going into the ground than if they had a 3-bedroom house with a Title V, then they should get the variance like someone else would get a variance if they were coming in proposing a changeover.
Okay, what if you've got a property that for whatever reason, reduction in field, say, is a 4-bedroom house on an acre of land and they have an IA system, which we have the Carmody records and we know that they're reducing it by about half. And they come in and say, I want to put 2 more bedrooms on my house. Actually, no, I want to put 3 more bedrooms in my house. And not only that, but the next door neighbor is producing with his 4 bedrooms X amount of nitrogen. I'm producing 1/2 X, so therefore I can come up and put more bedrooms out here. Follow me? I've already cut it in half, and I'm just gonna be bringing it up.
I think that they would still have to prove to the Board of Health that that system would discharge effluent at no greater detriment to
Than
the
it currently
environment
is.
than meeting the requirement of 1 bedroom per 10,000 square feet. I think they still have to come in and prove that to the Board of Health.
Yeah,
If
that's
they
the
had to have an
ratio.
IA system in the first place, they probably physically can't put a plant on there.
It's quite possibly.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just trying to think all the loopholes.
So the biggest loophole
I know, we've already taken care of that.
is the one that
I spoke to the
I
Cape Cod
just said that they
Commission
could.
about this.
You did. So did I.
They said,
What are
So
you
what did
talking
they
about?
Let me, on section 7.42 on page 7.
Do you have a handout, Bob?
That was in the regulations I gave you.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you mean that the formulas themselves?
Yeah, that sheet.
I did not,
mass balance.
make copies to hand out, but I can explain them.
Oh.
Didn't have enough.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
The board wants, I can make copies quickly, if.
Why don't you walk us through it, and we'll see if we need to burn the paper.
Okay, under 7.4.2, we're saying a nitrogen loading report prepared by an engineer demonstrating that the proposed septic system will offer the same level of protection to the ground or surface water resource as would be provided by strict application of this regulation. It has to be presented to the Board of Health. The Board of Health accepts the Cape Cod Commission Technical Report 91-001, that's their
Not gonna
nitrogen
accept
loading
it.
model, as the approved nitrogen loading model.
Where's the verb? A nitrogen loading report. There's no verb in that. There's no principal verb in that sentence.
Demonstrating.
Will offer.
No. That's a phrase, demonstrating that a proposed septic system will offer the
Well,
same
let's
level
get
of.
to the meat of this for a
Okay,
second.
okay,
This is
right,
what's critical.
okay.
Well, shall submit up above. Shall submit colon is where the verb is.
Oh, okay, right.
Okay.
Professor.
Oh,
I-
very good.
at the Selectmen's meeting and at the last Board of Health meeting, questions came up as to what the technical report 91-001 was, how we should define it in the regulation. And what I did is pulled up the report, and I said, well, I might as well run a couple scenarios through the report so I could show that to the board as well. The Cape Cod Commission nitrogen loading model uses a mean between, an average between the Title V flow and a flow based on the total number of occupants that Orleans has per residence, which is 2.14. So every situation you run is averaging 2.14 occupants in every dwelling in Orleans, and the average of the total number of bedrooms. And somehow it appears to be a weighted average. What I did is I ran a few scenarios using a 10,000 square foot lot, and a two-bedroom home on 10,000 square feet, which our regulations would allow, at a wastewater concentration of 35 milligrams per liter, which is the standard that's used for a septic system, would have a mean nitrogen loading concentration of 13.72 parts per million. I said, okay, if they want to add a bedroom to that, what would that come out to be? And of course, to do that, add a bedroom, they would have to put in nitrogen reducing technology to prove to the Board of Health that they will not put in more than the effective dose of 2 bedrooms per 10,000 square feet. So I ran another calculation based on 3 bedrooms, which of course I didn't bring with me. Yes, I did. 3 bedrooms per 10,000 square feet with a nitrogen concentration of 19. It's what an INA technology would give us. And the nitrogen loading calculation was 8.54. Without the technology, 2 bedrooms was 13.72. With the technology, 3 bedrooms was 8.54. So I took it a step further and said, well, how many bedrooms can I add to this piece of property? I got up to 75 bedrooms on 10,000 square feet with a nitrogen concentration of 19. I was at 12.47 parts per million. So still below the concentration that you would get using 2 bedrooms. And I even went as far as 100 bedrooms on 10,000 square feet.
It's 2.14 people living up in the
And it's
Sheraton.
2.14 people living in Sheraton, and that came out to 13.1 parts per million, still less than the 35 parts per
You have
million.
a problem.
Parts per million two-bedroom house would
What-
be.
And what about pounds of nitrogen, Bob?
No, it's
Pounds of
people.
nitrogen.
It's people. It's,
Yeah,
the fly in this ointment is the 2.14.
The pounds of nitrogen do go up. You know, the actual pounds of nitrogen, but the mass balance itself does not.
But have you kept this 100-bedroom house of yours constant for having a total occupancy of 2.14 people?
That's because that's what
That's
the
what
Cape
they
Cod
do.
Commission
That's what the
model
formula
uses.
So
Well,
they have 50 bedrooms each.
no,
That's correct.
the point is, since that time, we've refined it, so the occupancy rate in this town is 0.69 persons per bedroom. So if you looked at it and calculated that way, then,
Yeah.
but anyway.
69
go ahead.
people in.
Now,
What-
is Ken the .69, or is George the 0.69?
Some days he is, some days he is.
I knew I felt incomplete.
I did round that up to 0.7, you'll notice, because I did not think that the math
But-
merited 2 decimal points.
But, so the answer to the question, when you called their attention to it, They
Was
said-
that, gee, the formula appears to be accurate, I didn't mess up the formula. And the reason why it comes out that way is because it's always based on 2.14 individuals.
So you really think that this reference to this technical report, 91001, should be scrapped?
I do believe it should be.
it's old data, and they are finally gonna look at
Well,
it.
it's old data, or it's a methodology which
Yeah, the
doesn't
whole
apply to our
methodology.
regulation.
Okay.
So really, if you just cut out the sentence, then we don't have to get bogged down in 100 bedrooms and
Well,
the mathematics of it, right?
if we take out what's highlighted, the Board of Health accepts.
Yes.
You know, scrub that, then Bob's point is, we are going to have to reference some nitrogen loading report.
better suited.
Can we develop one, or do you have to find one that's been scientifically vetted?
I would imagine Wright Pierce could develop one for us. I know they've done it for other towns. I could not do it myself. You know, I imagine what we want is total pounds of nitrogen based on the per bedroom occupancy rate in
I
Orleans.
think Mike could do it in the form of a technical memorandum or something for us.
Seems to me it should be an
Because
asterisk.
we've already done this for the wastewater
That's a
management.
good thought, yes,
There's
at the
a
bottom of the
footnote.
page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Footnote or something not worked into the body of the document the way
Yeah,
this one
I
was.
think that's
Yeah.
very,
Yeah, footnote referencing a technical memorandum
Yeah, right,
available
yeah.
from the health department.
Yeah.
Copies available from the
That's
health
one, then we can
department.
change it any day we like. If something more.
How about if we
modern
say
comes up.
a nitrogen loading report as accepted by the Board of Health, prepared by a professional engineer? Put something in there
Yeah.
indicating
As
we
a-
must accept the report.
But should we just have an asterisk at the word regulation and bring it down to the bottom of the page so that we don't have to,
I don't know what you're talking about. There's no word regulation.
yes, there is. The very last word, application of this regulation, period. That's where the 7.42
Yeah.
now ends. You with me?
No, this is the regulation.
No,
Yes, that's fine.
if you eliminate this highlighted
Yeah.
sentence at the end that references the technical report, then that paragraph is going to end with the period following regulation right there.
Yeah.
And so the chairman is suggesting that there be an asterisk or a footnote created there that, and in the footnote is a reference to the technical document for the
That my
calculation.
Gigi is
No,
gonna
then you're
create.
gonna have to get it, Bob's suggestion was better, a nitrogen loading report acceptable by the Board of Health. And then if we have to change it as we mature, it's, you know, we have the option to say what's acceptable.
So then the board in an open meeting could vote to change which technical memorandum would be part of an acceptable report.
I think a report would come in from someone, what the Board of Health would probably say is, we are expecting a recharge rate of 16 inches per year, nitrogen concentration of 35, and an occupancy rate of 0.69 in the town of Orleans. That's, you know, and set up the criteria that we will accept to go into a report, because the nitrogen loading reports, you can change how many pounds of nitrogen you will put into a lawn area, or what percentage of that fertilizer or nitrogen from the fertilizer will leach into the groundwater. And you can change all the data, and it'd be very hard to compare one person's nitrogen loading model to another, because the data going into it is going to be different. So I think ideally, we will have to come up with what data we will look for in a nitrogen loading report.
Yep.
And probably what we're looking at the end is pounds of nitrogen per year using a Title V flow at 0.69 occupants per bedroom. I think is what the board will be looking at.
Mike said he would give us comments on this whole this week, and I think when they come in, we will ask him to give us some sort of a memorandum of understanding or something
Yeah,
out of
I
what the
spoke to him,
wastewater.
and he told me he was going to run the model and take a look at it, so.
Yeah.
So really, we still have a stylistic question whether that should be in a final sentence, an asterisk, or a footnote.
I liked Bob's suggestion as a final sentence.
Final sentence, okay.
It gives us flexibility.
We can always later add the asterisk.
Well, it means you
Well,
don't have to go into the regulation modification process to change the
Anything
data
change.
that may change from time to time.
Public hearings, advertised in the
Yeah,
paper.
That's good, that's good. Well, that blew my mind when Bob told me about that one with 100 bedrooms. Anything else on this whole nitrogen-sensitive issue, regulations?
About records of water use.
Use,
Back to my little problem.
Robin.
That's under your skin, isn't it, Mrs. Davis?
About
You
records,
say like, I mean,
records of water use, or record of water use.
what-
I don't really care.
You keep saying, but then you keep lying on
you
it,
do.
so I-
Can we talk about setting a date for the public hearings?
yeah, let's get this one out of the way, then we'll do that, Gussie, and then we'll get to the one more issue. You went on what, usage, is that what you're saying?
No, just record of water use, or records of water use.
That sounds perfect.
Excellent. Records of
And
water.
records of water use.
It goes better with number of bedrooms.
Okay, I'm with you.
What page are you on? Oh, okay.
We're on- back on
Got
this.
it.
We're back to the handout.
On the very last complete sentence of the Citizens Guide
Oh,
handout.
records, oh, okay.
That's very nice. I like that. Ms. Davis, thank you. Dr. Davis, Dr. Kelleher.
And you got your noun.
Yes.
Okay, two other things we need to consider. There's a bit of old business, but Ms. McCusick sent me an email about maybe we should also consider dates for public hearings on this very issue, assuming that we've just about done it now, and I think we have, sometime in January.
Actually, no, we haven't. Having did this before, as I understand it, we make a decision about the public hearing, or advertise the public hearing, we have the public hearing. I think we should have a matinee and an evening show.
Yeah.
And then we go back at the next Board of Health, and we take any input and make any changes we think need to be changed. And then we write it, and then we run it by Mike Ford, and then we vote on it again, and then we sign it.
Nonetheless, when I said it, maybe I should have not used the word it. This is ready for public hearing as we have left it today.
I would hope.
It continues to be a draft. We told that to Mrs. Fulcher till we somersaulted ourselves a few times because it is still a draft and will continue to be a draft until the whole of Orleans has had a chance to chew at it, and us. But we do need a date, as Gussie said, for morning and evening or afternoon and evening public hearings. Now, you're going to be gone. You told me when and I've forgotten.
Middle of February.
Middle of February.
So we've got the whole month of January.
No, well, I'm going to be gone from the 24th of January until February 2nd.
We have from the 1st until the 23rd of January.
Yes.
I would very much like to be here to vote on this.
I'd like you to be here very much.
I would hope we could get public hearings in December.
Oh,
No, well,
everything
I
else-
understand that, but there are going to be very important public hearings for wastewater management going on the week of January 10th to be exact. Public's going to be all involved in that. And then after we have the public hearing, we're going to discuss it again and then run it by Mike Ford, and these things take time.
December starts the day after tomorrow. Christmas does come on the 25th this year.
Remarkable how that
Yeah,
happened.
amazing. I don't know how the rest of you feel. I just think my December's shot. I don't know about the rest of you.
Then I'll have to fly back.
No, you won't. Look at January. You got 23 days in January.
No, you can't have two public hearings, have a Board of Health meeting, make any comments and discuss it, amend the thing, send it to Mike Ford, and get it back and vote on it again.
But
Yes,
if
you-
we're not implementing until May anyway,
We can wait
if
for you
we
to come
vote on
back.
it in March, is that a problem?
Once we've had the public hearings, I want you here for the public hearings if you would be so kind. Then I think the other steps that you talk about, including Mike Ford and so forth, you don't have to be physically present. We can contact you maybe, or maybe you don't want to be contacted. I don't know where you'll be, but
I'm trying to be a team member here. But, Mr. Chairman, I did write you and explain the hurdles we do have to jump, and I have been very interested in this, and we've been working on it now for almost 2 years from the start. And I would like very much, no, seriously.
yeah, I appreciate all of that.
I'd very much like to be part of the vote.
I want
for
you
it.
here, but I just think that December is so soon that I feel that to advertise public hearings but in the next 3 weeks, basically,
Well, then,
2 weeks probably.
here's my calendar, you tell me when.
No,
Yeah.
Mr.
Also,
Chairman,
I question also the attendance on the public hearings in December. People are involved with Christmas shopping, they're involved with family, they're involved with getting ready for Christmas. And I think that, okay, maybe for us, wastewater is high on our priority list, but on theirs, I don't think it's going to be very high.
And I think we could be then open to the suggestion that we try to sneak it by on a day when they weren't looking, so otherwise distracted.
I agree, and therefore, if we were able to have the public hearings in January, likely early January, when our full membership was available, and we could discuss the comments at our I guess, our second meeting in January. What date?
When do you leave, Sue?
I leave on Thursday,
Of-
the 24th,
Of-
at 2:30 in the morning.
Of January. So you would be here for our second meeting in January?
Yes, I would be.
And so I think we could, would have an opportunity at the second meeting in January to discuss the incorporation of comments into the document, at which point it's a question of, I mean, the language as we direct be included in it is included, and then it is forwarded to the town council. And I think if that copy of it and the copy from the public hearings has an intended implementation date, then whether we vote on it in February or we vote on it at the end of March is not as relevant a factor as we may think.
Also, Mike may not be quick to get back his comments to us as well, which is something
Sue,
that
will
we
you
had
be
no.
here? Will you be here on the 17th
Yeah,
of January?
yeah, yeah. And we could
We could
conceivably have an
vote on
extra
it. We
special
could vote
meeting.
on it the 17th, subject to Mike approving it. Mike Ford.
So we could really have it any time in the first 2 weeks of January.
Yeah,
Well, I have just said there are major public hearings going to take place on January the 10th.
All right, well, not the 10th then. The 10th is what? That's...
Thursday.
It is Thursday. Doesn't need to be, it doesn't need to be a
Doesn't need to
Thursday,
be a
does it?
Thursday, does it?
no.
No,
it
no,
doesn't.
doesn't have to, we can pick any.
Do you not want it within 2 or 3 days either side of that because you'll be
I-
so involved? I mean, seriously.
I have no problems. I know that frequently it takes a lot of energy to get people geared up to do anything. And, you know, if they feel like they're gonna come out for the other public hearings, fine, but I don't know. I don't know. I would,
I like your idea of having the public hearings, 2 on one day. It's tough on us. but I
Morning and
think-
evening.
But the morning and, the afternoon and evening, I think, is a good thought.
By the way, anything we decide, we've got to have a weather date up our sleeves because there could be a major snowstorm. That would be,
you can't, how do you do that in a legal ad, Jan? We've never done that before.
all right?
Rain date for the yard sale?
How about Tuesday, the 8th? Is Tuesday, the 8th? I don't have a calendar for next year.
Mr. Chairman, what the planning board has done to share experience of another board is, on a major public hearing night, when there was a snowstorm, we had the public hearing, accepted comments, and subsequently added another date because the weather may have kept people from including their comments. So we added another date at another time.
But there'd have to be a quorum of the board here for that, on that.
Understood.
How much time is it?
It never snows on the Cape, all right, I know that.
I mean, and then there's the
Title V.
consideration of 10 days for written comments to be submitted, there's a. So you're suggesting Tuesday, the 8th?
How is Tuesday, the 8th for everybody?
far as
Afternoon and
I know.
again in the evening.
That's fine with me.
Matinee,
Okay, so 1808, and it's
May or may not be.
3, what,
If you're going away, I gotta make my escape early.
Well, say 2 o'clock and 7 o'clock?
2 o'clock?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, and 7 o'clock, okay.
Do you want to be here to vote on it? Listen, just as long as you're here.
2 and 7?
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and I think we can, yeah, we can take,
We're arranging schedules here.
I mean, it's, you know, what we're kibitzing about over in the corner here is if a member is absent for one of the interim measures, I mean, I think this board with a quorum, but not necessarily a full body, can vote to forward an amended copy to town council for his review and comment.
Right.
And there's the likely opportunity that there are going to be suggested changes when that document comes back to this board. If that is the case,
Well, he's already seen it once.
I understand, but we've made some changes, so he needs to see it again. And there may be changes after the public hearing process. But there are numerous opportunities for changes, and this board is going to have to vote to endorse each iteration. So I do believe that there is a strong likelihood that the final vote on this regulation, pro or con, is going to come after most of the travel schedules have been enjoyed. Yours, mine, Gussie's.
How long will you be gone, sir?
I'll be gone 10 days.
10 days, that's easy. How long will you be gone? You're gone a long time, Gussie.
Never coming back.
A trail of dust over the horizon.
I've just made a critical decision.
Yes,
I think you'll be ready for a vacation.
Gussie, are you reachable and are you willing to be reached when you're wherever you'll be?
I will be on my laptop every day for at least
Then-
an hour and a half.
With your permission, and this is jumping way ahead
Well,
into next year, we'll contact you, and then if there's some issues, if that come up after the hearing, when you're gone.
You know what I'm being sensitive to? And it probably wouldn't make, I'm being sensitive to this certain guy I live with, spent 4 years of his life working on the wind towers. We went out of town and it got voted down.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah.
Okay?
I don't think this board is in a mood to vote this down unless we are told something at the hearing which will completely shatter our illusions about how useful this is to the.
I trust my colleagues on this one.
Well, please do. We're obviously allowed to skunk you. At least I'm not, and I don't think any of my friends are.
Well, it's-
So we have public hearings on Tuesday twice. We
Yeah.
present the Board of Health, the Board of Selectmen on Wednesday night, and then we have 2 public hearings the following. That's okay,
let's just run the table all in 1 week.
Yeah, okay.
You don't have to go.
All right, yeah. Then you can pack your suitcase.
If you
Well, and then when I go screaming over the horizon on the 14th of January, maybe,
you do.
Okay.
it'll all be behind me.
We have one other issue of old business. I think we're done with this. Are we done with this?
So we're gonna move ahead with, oh, go ahead. Look to Bob.
Yeah, at some point, I have expressed I have some concerns I want to go over the board, more implementation concerns, not necessarily the meat of the regulation. I think if we can have an opportunity to do that before the public hearings,
At our next
Do it
meeting?
during our December meeting?
we could do it at the next
Now?
December meeting. I have some of the questions with me now. If they're really the questions that are asked to me at the counter that I think will be asked at the public hearing. And
Should they be added to the handout?
No. They're
Is
gonna
that
be
something
asked-
that you should print out for us to look at before the?
I could print out, we could have it at next meeting.
Yeah. Why don't
It seems to me
but
that-
I think that's.
Well,
a
Oh, I
good
bet you,
thought.
I bet you $5 I can guess what they are. If I've already applied for a septic permit, am I gonna be subject to this regulation? If I've already got my septic permit in hand, and I get it before, let's say, May 1st, how long do I have to put my system in and not be subject to this regulation? If I already have my building permit, if I already have,
That's the
we're
type of
talking
things
about
they
the
are.
sunset clause, right?
Yeah. One question, we still have the discrepancy between our subdivisions of 3 or more parcels need a common system in this reg, 5 or more in our Board of Health reg. I just had a question, can you build a single-family dwelling in a general business district? I don't know, and would the reg apply to that?
The non-conforming use, you have to get either a special permit or a variance.
But they would be exempt from this regulation even if they got that variance then.
Like they built one in that parking lot behind Watson's.
Yeah.
I'll just throw these out, and I'll put them
That's
in
an
writing, we
exemption
can
that
discuss them
we
next
intentionally built
Thursday.
in.
Yeah. What
How
you can
we-
do is it appropriate to email them to us prior to the meeting?
Email them or get them in the packet.
Yeah, oh, okay, yeah, or get
I
them in the
won't be here
packet.
tomorrow.
I'd love a chance to kick it around
Yeah,
mentally
right.
before we,
Let's do this then. Put it in the
we.
package.
Yeah, right.
Good
Okay.
idea.
Good.
Lessons from the counter, we will call it, or tears shed at the counter or something. The other issue, if I may, before we wrap up, it's a matter of old business. At our last meeting, we talked about the Cape Cod Commission and the Paul Daniels application. We had not seen any material, and we thrashed it around a bit, and the decision of this board was that Sims and Bob were to draft a letter with some input from me addressed to the Cape Cod Commission. This was duly done. And you see a copy of a letter which I thought maybe was the final letter until I switched on my television set at about 6:30 yesterday evening. And it suddenly occurred to me, and Bob was of the same mindset, that there were discussions at the selectmen's meeting. And I watched that part of the selectmen's meeting that addressed specifically the Cape Cod Commission and the Paul Daniels application. And it made me feel that this letter was no longer really adequate to the issue as it pertains to this board and the Department of Health. To cut to the quick, really, first of all, I do want to
Can
thank...
we have a second to read it? Oh, please.
Yeah, well, I'd like to read it.
Well, let me just tell you the background before you read, because
Okay.
it's become irrelevant. I do want to comment and thank Margie Fulcher, who made a very, very nice reference to the hard work that the Health Department and its agent and associate agent have to do each year. But then there was a discussion about the Cape Cod Commission itself. And you may remember that there was an option of sending, those who watched it, of sending this whole issue to the Cape Cod Commission, which was recommended by one person. It did not even get a second as a motion, and therefore it was never discussed. Against that background, please do have a moment to read this letter.
This is the exciting part of the television show.
Yeah, right.
I think, number one, this is a superb letter. Number two, it answers all the concerns and most accurately reflects the scope at which we can be involved at this point, and I think it has absolutely nothing to do with the meeting that was televised last night from the Nauset room.
Well, the meeting made reference several times to the ability of they kept saying Board of Health, but they really meant our health agent, to basically oversee anything that happens on the property itself, and implied that the only issues that we could not, or Bob Canning, with a little bit of help from America, could not alone monitor were those of traffic as it turned from Eldridge Parkway or as it turned from Route 28. My feeling is that there is more that needs to be done than we can possibly expect of our own health department. spite of my enormous confidence in its abilities. Bob, I'd like to hear your comments on that.
Well, with regard to the comments of the inspections, the health department has done inspections at Daniel's facility on a complaint basis only. We did some pre-opening inspections, and since then it's been on a complaint basis. However, per requirement of the DEP, the Board of Health, the solid waste management regulations, they do get a monthly inspection by an engineer to evaluate the facility. The monthly inspections include the following topics: facility equipment, incoming materials, summary of outbound materials, goes into nuisance conditions such as wind-blown litter, dust control, material storage and tipping areas, vector control, goes into rejected loads, employee training, compliance with waste inspections. Are required to do various waste inspections as the product comes into the facility, and goes over the analysis of the asbestos sampling. Asbestos is required to be tested, composite samples each day that they are processing, as well as sampling the filter media when they change the filter media. So we do receive those inspections on a monthly basis. Previously, I reported to the Board of Health the findings of each of those inspections. That is what we do. We review those reports, and that's what we have done to secure compliance. We do not go out on an ongoing basis. Can we go out? We could go out. If the board would like me to go out on a routine basis, certainly we would schedule it. Certainly it's going to take away from something else we do, but this is an important subject. We can go out and evaluate the facility for all of the conditions of the site assignment on whatever basis we choose, unannounced inspections or announced inspections, however the board would like it. The other item that came up at yesterday's meeting, though, was discussed is the Cape Cod Commission's involvement versus the town's involvement, and the level of expertise of town employees or staff. And at the meeting, it was alluded to, we don't have the in-house expertise to review all of these documents. Yet, as the discussion went on, it became apparent that Green Seal was saying that all the documents and all of the approvals and reviews fall under the jurisdiction of the Board of Health. We don't have staff or expertise to review items such as traffic control, congestion at intersections, vehicular safety or pedestrian safety. We don't have the expertise to review mechanical information on equipment in the facility, how many air turnovers there would be, is there negative pressure, is there not negative pressure, nor can we review an application to say that this is the best equipment that is out there, that this is the state-of-the-art equipment. I want to make sure the board is clear on that. If we need additional help on that, our options are the Cape Cod Commission, which they're looking for our input, or the town would have to hire a consultant to review that. The third option is that we take the word of the consultant for Daniel's Recycling Company. So I just want to clarify, that situation on what the expertise that may be needed for the site assignment and review is, and what in-house capabilities we have. Certainly we have a general understanding of the items, but to sit there and review engineer reports, traffic engineer, mechanical engineer, we'll either have to hire out, use the Cape Cod Commission, or depend on the design engineer, the proponent's engineer.
What you're saying is that, as I understand what you're saying, Bob, that as a health department, you neither have the expertise to evaluate things outside the facility itself, but beyond that you cannot judge a series of critical issues within the facility. And I would have thought that even for Paul and Steve Daniels themselves, they would want an independent evaluation, not one that they're paying for, which always be questioned, especially when this thing comes under so much question and scrutiny as is inevitable. Therefore, it seems to me that really there are two choices. Either that the town will have to cough out for some independent assistance to what you can do with your department, or that this goes to the Cape Cod Commission, where frankly I believe it should go. So that's my personal view, and I'd like to hear from others on this board.
Want to start this end, or?
Yeah,
You
let's
had
just
your
go- we'll
hand
go-
up, doesn't matter,
doesn't
okay.
matter. Let's go down the whole length.
I think there are two issues here. There's one, making the kinds of evaluations that we are gonna have to make to give them a new site assignment. And the other, the ongoing evaluation of what's going on there. In their number of years that they've been in business, I know that you've done everything you can, and we thought getting monthly reports plus responding to specific complaints was about as far as we could go with the staff we had, and I fully agree. And if we get to another point again, I'm certainly gonna ask for some mitigation funds to be set aside so we can periodically have surprise visits, but that's not here or there. I think in relationship to how we inspect on an ongoing basis has gotta be totally separated out from the kind of information we want to do an appropriate minor, a site assignment. I do not think it's appropriate for them to go through all of these bullets on the bottom of the first page again, but I think it's very appropriate to go through a limited, a modified site assignment. And I think we should certainly be asking the Cape Cod Commission to do that, and I think this letter does that. But we are also handcuffed by the very fact that they've never made application to us. So a lot of stuff we're getting on limited, a small amount of information and a heck of a lot of hearsay. But I think this solves the immediate problem of not having the expertise to comment appropriately when our turn comes to making a site assignment. As far as what goes on after that, that's another discussion. That's the way I feel.
One of the components of last night's discussion at the selectmen's meeting that I heard was who has control over this site and who has control over both of the elements of the application and the conditions that may be attached to the site assignment or the site suitability. I think the site suitability's been done, so it would be what conditions are attached to the modification of the site assignment. And also there was discussion about who has control over regulation and enforcement on an ongoing basis during the operational stages of it. And I heard some discussion about where the Cape Cod Commission may fit into either of those regulation and control scenarios. And the point was made that the health department and the Board of Health as the health department's oversight really have regulatory control over almost every aspect of it. They have control over the site assignment criteria during the application process and the conditions that are put on the site assignment, and then they have regulatory control over the operations as they may or may not comply with the site assignment and those conditions. I can't disagree with any part of those discussions. The Cape Cod Commission is trying hard to be of assistance to communities as these applications are reviewed. What I can't get a handle on is what is the distinction between the help we're going to get if it's referred to the commission, either in whole or for certain aspects of the application, as opposed to the help we'd get if we just called them up and say, gee, we're having a little trouble getting a handle on this engineering report. Or the traffic study. If it's referred for traffic, how is their report going to be different from if we call up and say, gee, we're having a little trouble making sense how the changes in the intersections apply to these traffic numbers. So if I thought we were going to get similar levels of response, I'm not sure I'd feel the need for a referral. But if we're going to get a, the numbers look kind of good, or, well, maybe we might have a concern with this piece of equipment because, maybe the volume isn't quite there, as opposed to a specific response about the type, the best, the state-of-the-art equipment for that particular purpose. I have some real concerns about our ability to assess the proposal, and so if it doesn't go to the commission for, and I agree, the two concerning aspects are engineering and traffic, mechanical engineering and traffic. If it doesn't go to the commission, then I think there has to be an outside consultant, because I'm not sure we want to ask the fox how many hens are in the hen house.
Right. I think also the other issue is staff. I mean, you are quite stretched as it is without having to take on, consistent inspections of this. And I don't see any help coming from town hall on that, in terms of increasing your staff just to accommodate what's going on Finley Road.
Let's pretend that this reaches the point where it comes to us for site assignment. I think there are all those conditions that got put on last time. We could put another condition on that funds are made available to the town to hire their own consultant at X dollars. I mean, it's sort of like impact fees. I mean, if this gets to the point to come back to us, I am definitely going to insist that we get X dollars annually to use at the discretion of the health department for expertise in evaluating the compliance with this. And it can be, twice a year, surprise inspection by a super duper agency. It can be whatever it is, but it's another dimension. But that doesn't answer what we need from them now. And I think these items here, but expanded to include an engineering review of the adequacy of the
Environmental controls.
well, does that cover it in here? Would we be more specific? A mechanical engineering report is the state-of-the-art equipment they've got, and does it, how can we get to that mechanical engineering thing that you just mentioned?
Well, I mean, the air quality control elements are going to be governed by mechanical engineering, whether it's a spray system or it's an air handling system.
Well, then
it
we've got to be
involves
more
mechanical.
specific on that than here, then.
So you're talking about modifying the letter, but let me hear from Robin first. She said anyone
I'm
hasn't
sorry,
spoken.
I'm sorry.
No, I agree with everything
All
that
right,
Gus
let me
said.
go
I think
back.
a lot of.
So we're suggesting, let me go back to
Oh,
our
she
head.
hasn't finished.
I can't comment.
You can't comment?
Should I just go home now?
Why?
I'm recused on this one.
Is that right?
On this
Oh,
whole, the
Oh,
whole
yes, oh, I
thing?
know, yes, right, yeah.
Tell the world why, it's not a big
Tony
secret.
has an industrial lot abutting this site.
So the ready, that,
My
that,
husband.
You're in a butter.
I am in a butter, I believe. I've probably
Is
signed
that-
some
is that-
closing
You're in a butter
papers.
by marriage.
Yes.
right.
I think I'm probably on it too, but I've never even been there. I mean, I think I've been to his lot, but I didn't notice that Paul Daniels was back there. We figured it out.
I don't know if that really does make somebody have to recuse themselves. I'm
Well,
not
I am
sure.
in a butter, so
Well, if you don't have a financial interest in it, you can just identify yourself as, I'm sitting here, but I want to be known that, I'm in a butter of his property. And you don't have to physically.
I think you can have a secondary financial interest by just whatever happens there could impact, because it's an industrial.
Well, it's probably safer to recuse, probably safer that way. All right, let me go back to a headline to where the discussion has gone now, I think. What you have suggested, Gelsey, is that this letter still suffices if
I
we
think
add
it does.
some
I think we refer
specifics.
to it for a limited review, and we get very specific about what we want to find out.
From what I gathered from the discussion last night that was on television, it seems that the applicant is willing to contribute real estate that they already own and to contribute to traffic issues at the intersection of Godiah Hill and Finley Road. And I think it's generous and it's appropriate. And I don't want to suggest that I don't think any of that's a good idea, and I don't want to be discouraging if that is part of the application that we eventually see. But it still doesn't help us address the wider issues. Now, maybe it's not in another municipality, but it's still, there's a wider circle of influence in this traffic question than just that one intersection. And I have absolutely no way to interpret their traffic study in light of the proposed modifications of of two of the major intersections that are gonna be impacted by the traffic issues. You know, I think it's in the applicant's favor that those intersections are going to be modified. But how do we incorporate that in our thinking? How do we establish that in fact there is greater throughput capacity in those intersections that's going to mitigate the effect of the additional
Doubling.
64 trips a day?
Doubling trucks, yeah.
And
Isn't the first question, should we be going to the Cape Cod Commission? That's the first decision we have to make, and I would say yes.
I second that.
And I'm inclined in that direction because it seems to be the
Simplest.
best resource available for technical advice on the issue.
Okay, and my second feeling is, I do not think we have to go through all these things again. But I very clearly think we have to go through these, and I would consider expanding them.
And increasing the font. Truly.
I mean, you know what I would like to know? There are existing traffic studies, and I don't want to be sitting there when we have to do a site assignment, and the only, quote, expert material we have comes from Green Seal. They may be absolutely fine, but I'd like some other corroborating information or conflicting information, but we have to decide on. And I would specifically ask these things to the Cape Cod Commission, and I would expand it to get a lot more detailed about what is the effect of traffic there once the following type, suggested modifications are made. I want to know what is the effect from the rest of that whole industrial area that goes right by there. We've got moving companies, we've got earth movers, we've got septic system, he's not the only guy down there with trucks. And what happens on the public roads is not totally his problem. So I would like to expand the effects of the industrial park and, how much of this piece of this pie is his.
I agree. I'm not, and I don't look at this as a way to extract mitigation funds. I just, as a member of a regulatory board, I need a perspective on what's the real change in the traffic volume. Is this going to increase the throughput in an intersection by 0.02%, by 2%, 12%? I don't know, and I don't have any way to interpolate it.
Sue?
My concern is, first of all, 28 is a state road, which we have basically no control over. We might have control over introducing from the Finley Road side some kind of a traffic light or something of that sort. But looking back at how long it took to do Skakehead Corners, we've got a long road ahead of us, and you're dealing with the state and the state roads on both sides, on 6A as well as on 28. And I don't know what heft the Cape Cod Commission has to push this along if it goes forward.
Probably more than the Board of Health in Orleans.
I would think, yes, right.
The Cape Cod Commission simply provides data to you. They're not going to be giving the site assignment. We're going to have to make a site assignment on data. And I would like some data other than what we're going to get from Green Seal.
Well, it just seems, again, maybe I don't even understand how much the Cape Cod Commission can do for us. But it seems to me that the various questions that have been asked, and maybe I should ask this question, do those of you with more experience than I have agree that the questions that we've asked could be resolved by the Cape Cod Commission with the expertise that they have available to them?
No,
Good
they will
question.
not answer it for you. They absolutely will not They will not do the site assignment. We're gonna have to do the site assignment. And we're gonna have to do the site assignment on data.
But who gets the data?
They will.
That's my
You
question.
specifically asked them
That
to
is my
give you
question.
information.
Right, but somebody has
Am
to
I,
count
am
the
I right
cows.
on that one?
Yeah, I think that it depends on how the Cape Cod Commission takes it. If they take it as a DRI, then they're gonna look through their regulations, and there's 100 points that have to be met in the DRI. They're gonna make sure that this meets the 100 points. If it's a minor modification to the site assignment, it's my understanding it goes through a regulatory committee review, and the regulatory committee makes their decision as to whether to approve the project or not. It's not a public hearing, it's not a public review at all. A major modification, I believe, throws it back into what they would be doing for a DRI. I think they would be looking at the facility and its impact on the surrounding areas, as well as the facility itself.
Anyway, let me cut to the quick. We've listed all the things that have to be done, and maybe there's more that should be added to the list. That's easy. But what we have not said here is help.
May I follow up on Bob's comment quickly? My concern is not so much the public process. I think if it is done, if there is an administrative review at the commission level, and the public hearing process is at our level, I'm okay with that as long as through the administrative process that runs prior to our public hearings, that accurate data is developed and interpreted, and we have the benefit of that data and those interpretations to incorporate in our decision-making process. And because the traffic concerns that we have are within the bounds of the municipality, I think we as a board and the town of Orleans has control over that. What we don't have control over is development of the data and interpretation of the data. And those,
Asking them to do that.
those concerns apply to the traffic issue and in my terminology, the mechanical engineering issues. And all I need is as a decision maker on this board, I need some advice on those two areas.
Back to my question, help. Where in this letter does it say, help us?
Dear Mr. Smith, help us.
Yes.
Next paragraph. This letter is in response to your letter of.
We
Okay?
need help. I mean, we do.
Okay, but but you get down at the bottom, and, you know, since the board will have a formal review proposal, has not yet received a formal application, it's different to give you specific comments. I think you could take that paragraph and say, these are the areas that we have major concern, and we are asking you, the items of major concern, and list them. We are asking you the following, you know.
Or simply, this board feels that we will require technical assistance on these issues to make
Yeah,
a
I
fully
like that.
informed decision.
I like that.
Namely, help.
Yeah,
Well,
but that's,
I mean, the
Help.
Cape Cod Commission has specifically said that they are there to provide technical assistance. Now, whether that is,
Say it again, this board, I love the way you phrase it.
the-
This board.
this board feels it will require technical assistance on the following issues in order to make a fully informed decision.
If you have any questions, call me. My number is, you don't mind being available to them, do you, Young?
And Linda, I never get it right the second time, so.
What if I comes forward?
We may need to draw it off the tape. But
I mean, you could just expand this very, very last sentence, this last paragraph. You know, you've done it all so well so far. The Board of Health looks forward to working with you during the review on the projects. We need technical assistance on making, you know, appropriate site assignments and blah, blah, blah. I mean,
well, I'm not sure we want to throw them the whole site assignment ball. I think, I mean, I've expressed my concerns. I have, and I think that covers some other members' concerns. I haven't heard the list expanded by anybody. But I mean, personally, the areas that of the application that I can pick out at this point, haven't seen the application, but the areas that I feel uninformed on would be traffic and mechanical engineering. And I think the other information is available either from the prior application and that process, or the knowledge we already possess in town. So I think, I mean, the commission wants to provide technical assistance to communities. What I'm not clear on is whether we have to refer a project to get real technical assistance. I don't think a phone call, yeah, they're close enough, is what I would call real technical assistance. I'm expecting someone to sit down for a couple of days, go through the numbers, consider the proposals, look at them from their own direction, and come up with an independent response to the data that exists on the various elements. What do we have to do to get that sort of help from the commission? Rhetorical question, maybe, but
Maybe that's a question we put in the letter.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think it's very clear that we're saying, let's go to the commission.
Mm.
Well,
But
let's-
we don't know asking for what. And I think maybe that's what you,
Exactly, what I'm unclear on is.
does this rise to the level of?
Does it rise to the level of a referral, even if it's on specific topics? Or is this level of technical assistance actually available to us, even if it's not referred to the commission?
This is my problem in the fact that, I mean, the application has not been placed before us. Are we putting the cart before the horse?
Well, is the horse gone before the cart gets here?
Yeah.
Yes,
Do we,
yes.
do we have to ask for a referral, and I don't know whether we ask the commission or whether we ask the selectmen to ask the commission. Chain of command there isn't absolutely clear to me, but if there's a request for the commission to take this in as a referred project, whether it's, and I would expect it to be limited, I don't see the need for it to be full, but do we have to make that decision now before we've really seen an application?
Yeah.
Well, we're being asked to.
Well, yesterday, I mean, it was very clear that the Board of Selectmen had wanted nothing to do with the Cape Cod Commission, thought that we,
No,
as a health
no,
department.
not the Board of Selectmen, some individuals.
Okay, the majority,
I heard one member say
Yes.
that he had really hoped that it would be referred for traffic.
Yes,
okay, but we.
And-
but they
and it-
didn't
and it-
have the courage to take steps.
And it doesn't seem to have worked out that way.
Fair enough, I will apologize to the individuals, but nonetheless, the corporate decision by the Board of Selectmen was that the health department can do everything that needs to be done within the walls of the.
Bob, what's the deadline for asking for Cape Cod Commission help?
I don't have the date for that. I could ask George.
it's
George has
very
been in
soon.
contact with the commission, but I do believe the selectmen's letter is being proposed to be signed next Wednesday. Our next meeting is next Thursday.
Could you make a phone call, and I don't know who you talk to, whether it's the traffic guy, or go right up and talk to Paul Niswicki, and just tell them that we had a lengthy discussion, and we are going to have to be doing the site. Well, you tell them, you know what to tell them, and just say, what's the best, we want technical assistance, and how do we get that from you guys, and what's our letter gonna trigger, and how do we best do it?
And we're gonna be looking for a written response.
Is that, do we send this letter then as it is? Do we add that phrase that we just pull that out of the sky?
I think we get the ad.
Get it-
I think you need to wait until this, until the
Nothing
phone
till
call.
then?
And we'll decide how to modify the language of this letter based upon the response that Bob gets to his questions.
Bob knows most clearly what he's going to need when we go to that site assignment. I would call up Paul and just say, this is what we would like to have you provide for us. How do we get it? Do we send a letter saying, do a full DRI, a partial DRI, a limited this, a limited that? Do we put in a request for technical assistance? How do we do it? And see what they say. And say, I'll give you a sample of the letter we've written, just write draft all over it. and
Basically,
tell
what
them-
we're asking the commission is that we want their input in writing on the items listed there: traffic and access to site, potential air quality impacts, potential for the creation of nuisance, threat to public health,
Yep.
safety and environment, and
Yep.
adequacy of mechanical engineering controls, and what is the proper wording
Best way for us
that
to
we
get that.
would, or what are our options, I guess, for getting that information?
Yep.
Does it have to be a DRI? Can it be a request for technical assistance outside of DRI?
Yeah.
Is there a difference in the level of technical assistance? Okay,
We know what we want, and I don't know what the vehicle is to get it, and see what they say.
okay.
And I think that is going to tell us whether it's just this letter that goes, or do we have to add another paragraph? I don't think they make a big deal of it.
Well, I mean, the responsibility,
It's a good letter, but I don't know who wrote it, but very good.
clearly the responsibility is going to be put squarely on the Board of Health,
Yeah,
if and when this application appears, and that
Sorry, I didn't watch the meeting.
the selectmen are,
no, you're not.
clearly
Maybe that-
expecting that the Board of Health is going to use all its resources to fully control the project through the application process and into the operational process, however that may play out. I'm not sure that we're being given a toolbox full of all the tools we need to do that. So I want to make sure that we've got the tools before we take on the job. And I am disinclined to be the fall guy if it doesn't play out the way everyone wants it to play out.
And we will be,
Yeah.
because this has got the town divided and got the Board of Selectmen divided, and
So
nobody wants to step up to the plate, so we have to.
Gotta have the tools to do the job.
Yep, okay.
Oh,
I've got the.
okay, I think we've been at this for 2 hours. Is there any other urgent business we need to attend to today?
Now, I
One-
move we adjourn this work meeting.
Well, hang on, Bob, you wanted one other thing before
I
that?
just have one other thing.
Okay.
We announced, or we're announcing, that the flu clinic for December 5th is open
yes.
to all Orleans residents over the age of 18. We have
Oh.
about 300 vaccines available. We certainly would want the residents of the town to take advantage of
That's
that.
nice.
So we're, as of yesterday, at the end of our first clinic, we're opening it up to
Can't
all
sell that
residents.
stuff,
So, well, it's, there's been a lot of private clinics going on early in the season.
Yes, I know, Stop and
And
Shop
what
and
we're
CVS.
concerned about, is next year's order.
Yeah.
If this year we don't use as many, there's a chance we may be cut next year, so.
Yeah, right.
We're putting on the webpage, it was announced at the selectmen's meeting,
they
announcing
get
it
it
here
Cape
today. It will not make the Cape Codder, because that goes,
Too late.
that's coming out tomorrow.
So when is that
Um,
next clinic?
Next clinic is Wednesday, December 5th, from 1 to 4 p.m. It's open to all Orleans residents over the age of 18 years. Pre-registration is required. To register, you're to call the Orleans Senior Center at 508-255-6333. And if you do have a Medicare B card, we request that you bring the card with you.
And if you have no insurance and no card, you get it for free.
It is of no cost to a resident of Orleans.
So any resident of Orleans can
Over
get it
18.
over the age of 18.
That means Robin can get it.
Wait, I thought there were restrictions on the ages.
They do miss the punchline.
The restrictions.
Nobody invited me back.
Have been lifted. They've been lifted.
Oh, nobody invited.
Yes, because we have served the community. We've been out for several weeks trying to get those in our eligibility criteria over the age of 65, chronic health issues. And we feel that we've served those,
And you still
and our
have
next
one.
clinic, which is next week, is not filled, and we'd like to fill that clinic, so.
If anybody watches this on television,
Yep, sign up.
Call the Council on Aging and make an
any resident of
appointment.
Orleans over the age of 18, at no cost, if you have a Medicare card, bring it, pre-register at the senior
Council
center.
on Aging.
Well, you know,
Council on
there's-
Aging,
there's not much left, like
255-6333.
Very good. Now, can I have a motion for
So moved.
second? Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. We are adjourned.